Okay, so speaking about biosecurity from a feedlot perspective, a lot of it is quite general and a lot of it is what we are specifically doing in quarantine. So we did speak about the spread of it now. It's really important to understand how it spreads in order to stop it. Our most important is our direct contact, and then saliva, which is on infrastructure and carried on clothing as well. And then we did mention the human respiratory aerosols. This is probably not as important as mud and feces on your boots if you are not examining an animal. So it's highly environmentally resistant, which is important to consider when you're thinking of the mud and the feces on your boots and on your vehicles. It is inactivated by a pH of less than 6 or more than 9. We are using citric acid at 0.2%, and then it is also inactivated at temperatures above 56 degrees. They're also registered disinfectants, and they require a longer contact time. So whose responsibility is it? According to the Animal Diseases Act, number 35 of 1984, any owner or manager of land on which there are animals must take all reasonable steps to prevent the infection of animals with any animal disease. So from our side, our risks are cattle, vehicles, and people. If you're not buying cattle in, then you're probably looking more at vehicles and people. When you're looking at biosecurity, it is important to consider the 3 pillars of paperwork, barriers, and hygiene. Biosecurity is a set of protocols in place, but it's also mindset. You have to critically analyze everything you do. So paperwork is your animal traceability and your movement records, your visitor logbooks. Barriers are your quarantine, your fencing, making sure that your animals aren't in contact with your neighbors, and then also single entrance with the barrier to your farm. Your hygiene is your vehicle cleaning and disinfectant, and also considering your farm workers' boots and overalls. Cattle, you need to think about your sourcing and your quarantine, mouthing, commingling, and animal movement. So going back to our 3 pillars, paperwork, you need to think about traceability. We need a system in place. We need to know where the animals come from and where they're going. We need to have physical obstruction to movement and separation from your neighbors. And then once again, quarantine if you're buying in new animals. If you have new animals and they are in quarantine, you need to consider who's working with those animals and where they're going. Are you sending the same tractor to feed your new animals and then bringing it back onto the farm? What we're doing, our most important, is our sourcing from farm of origin. We want to see the calves with their mothers. This is our form of traceability. When an animal comes to our quarantine station, we want to know that this is their first move. We put an EID tag in when it gets to the quarantine station, and then it is traceable to slaughter. We have a 28-day all-in, all-out quarantine. Animals are mouthed twice during this period, 14 days apart. We also avoid buying from high-risk areas. This includes both our usual Limpopo and KZN areas, but then also any area that has had a new case. We have a margin around it that we avoid. With vehicles, it's cattle trucks, cattle trailers, and then your own vehicles. You need to be aware of where you've been. It is important to note that the chassis and then the wheel arches are what needs to be cleaned. So the paperwork, your movement records, this is people coming onto your farm as well. Your logbooks must include details of the driver, the purpose of the visit, the origin, and the destination. There must be access control. And then hygiene is your wheel wash, your vehicle spray, and your truck wash between loads. We're using F10 General Farm Disinfectant to ACT. ACT is also registered. So this is an example of, okay. We just see it will play.
Yeah.
So this spray is from underneath. As you can see, it's a little bit wide. So you don't get a good spray from the sides. So even if you're doing these things, you need to look at them and just give a practical use your head. So there's quite a high pressure from the bottom. And this is just onto a farm. It's not a positive farm. It's not vehicles coming from a positive farm. And it's not going to cover you so now everyone's loving the farm. This is just an extra control. So we can skip to the next one. So this is a spray at an auction facility, It looks very impressive. It looks like it's probably doing a good job, but there's very little spray coming from the bottom. Okay. Okay, sorry. That was me. Okay, this one. And then can you just skip a little bit forward?
No, it doesn't want us to.
Okay, that's fine. So this is at one of our quarantine stations. It's demonstrating the logbook filling in. So there's a gate there. This person cannot go any further without stopping, filling in the logbook, his reason for visit, where he's going, where he's been. There's a foot mat there. He has to get out and clean his boots, and then the vehicle will be sprayed. You will see eventually that this spray is actually quite effective, and even though it's not going underneath the vehicle, you're probably getting a better spray of your vehicle arches, your wheel arches. So none of that will replace a proper truck and vehicle wash. Trucks must be washed between every single load. You have to wash off the organic matter, and you also have to use a disinfectant. So we leave our disinfectant on to dry, which takes care of the contact time. But this is probably more important than any spray that you can do. So people can carry foot to mouth on their boots and clothing. And the most important thing is being aware of where you've been. If you've been to an auction, you didn't buy cattle, you were still a risk. So what we're doing for this is we have our misting booth, which is a biosecurity barrier. It drops the pH to less than 5. So it's a citric acid mist. And then those you can see are pH strips. And then more importantly than that is our workers don't stay on the farm, but their clothing all does. So they get changed at the end of every day after washing their boots. They go home. When they arrive in the morning, they go through the misting booth. They go to the change rooms, and then they put their work clothes on. We also have different colored overalls and boots for our dirty sites. And if we've had a team that has gone to a dirty site, they do not return to the clean site. So this is just a video of our misting booth. So this is our form of a shower in, shower out, because it's just a more practical for the feedlot. So there's no silver bullet. You have to do a risk assessment and mitigation specific to your operation. You have to find what works for you. And if you need to work with people and on a specific road, block it off and have a drive-through dip, then work with your neighbors to get that in place. And it will be costly, but the cost of foot to mouth is much greater. Protecting your farm is your responsibility, but it is our collective responsibility to protect the future of the agricultural industry.
Thanks, Jade.
Do you want to see?